The number one and the biggest factor, when doing this. So let's talk about the case. Let's go back to that. Matthew Martin, when you elicited help from Anith on this, what kind of factors are you looking at? What kind of questions are you asking? What kind of features of this case are you looking for help on?
Yeah, so in this particular case, I approached Anith with really very little background, as much as I wanted to be able to design a Trans-Limbal hyperopic Ortho-K lens. And Anith was kind enough to assist me with that. I had attended Vision by Design, which, if you're listening and you haven't been to Vision by Design yet, you're missing a bet. So let me just take this moment to plug Vision by Design, because it's the way to go. But I had been at the WAVE meeting, and
also, Matthew, just to interrupt, if you want any education in this kind of stuff, there's nowhere else to get it.
Okay.
There is nowhere else to get it by far. Lecture room and outside the lecture. So if you're trying to get into these complicated designs, you got to attend Vision.
Sidebar, am I okay to mention WAVE while we're talking about?
Oh yeah, you can mention anything you want. Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure I'm not stepping on your toes.
No, you guys are free to talk about whatever you want.
So I had been at the last Vision by Design meeting, and I had caught the lectures on hyperopic Ortho-K, and I was diligent, sat in the audience. It's something I've been thinking about doing for a while, because I have these hyperopes in the practice. Took a bunch of notes, took some copies of some stuff, tried to design a lens, and I just could not get anywhere with it. And so I had reached out to Anith, who was kind enough, because we have shared the stage together and done a lot of stuff. He was kind enough to sit down with me over a Zoom call and be the hero that I needed when I needed it. And he helped me to design this Trans-Limbal hyperopic lens, which is surprisingly complicated. I think I'm on my 8th or 9th Trans-Limbal hyperopic design now, and I still find it complicated, and I still feel like it takes me some time to design, but it is getting smoother. So I will tell you that if you're interested in Trans-Limbal hyperopic Ortho-K, attending Vision by Design would be a great place to talk to some people who do this type of stuff. But the design itself is quite complicated, and at least it is to me. And what's your take on a Trans-Limbal design compared to, say, a regular hyperopic design?
I hate to say this, Matthew, after you just said that. It's not a big difference.
Okay. Well, no, lay it on me.
You got to remember. So you mentioned WAVE.
Yeah.
So I've been doing WAVE designs for a long time. So I was used to making design changes based on my own clinical expertise, I would say, for a while. So if you jump into WAVE and you jump into Trans-Limbal, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that I would say that's like hey, well, I'm JV in high school, but I want to jump into the NBA. Like, no, like that transition is not going to be easy. You got to go in steps. When I started doing some Trans-Limbal designs, I would say the biggest changes are how you manipulate where you want things to land, how you want the comfort level to be based on edge lift. And then when you have hyperopic correction, this is the tricky part, how you incorporate treatment zones and asphericity. And those are things you don't really think about maybe when you're doing a myopic design. So think about this. Say you do a lot of ortho for myopic controlled children, and you work with a consultant, like pick your favorite ones, Paragon, Ability, whatever. And you put in a topography, or a lot of them just take Ks and a refraction, and they spit out something. How much, even if you did it for 5 years, how would you know like how those curves are working, how they're manipulating the cornea? Like you may not have gotten that experience of saying, okay, well, I know how to look at a difference map, I know how to do this, but you don't know what the mold itself is doing. And then now you're going into hyperopic correction, completely different design. how you manipulate corneal tissue. And now you're saying, well, can't I just do that to a lab? Like, oh, a lot of them won't do it. And you never got the fundamentals of how corneal epithelial tissue is going to be manipulated. How is mid-peripheral corneal tissue manipulated? How are you correcting that refractive error in the first place? And now you're doing it on the opposite side, and now you're doing multifocality, and now you're putting in apheresis. Like, what does all that mean? Never got the fundamental. So it would be like coming out of grad. I remember this. This is a funny story. I had a friend of mine. We're at UT together. Our fourth year of UT undergrad, and he was getting into med school. Got accepted, and I hate to bash him. I won't say his name, but he's a fantastic ENT doctor now. But he got into med school, and we're all drinking one day, and he just made this side comment. He's like, I'm basically a doctor already because he got into med school.
Yeah.
I was like, you haven't gone through those 4 years and 3 years of residency and 5 years. Like, you haven't went through all that. So it's not as simple. Like, and I get this question a lot from colleagues who reach out to me, like, hey, I'm doing myopic ortho-K. Now I want to do hyperopic ortho-K or Trans-Limbal Ortho-K, and they've been doing empirical ordering. You can't just jump into that. Like, you got to make sure you understand the fundamentals. How do you learn that? I mean, there's a lot of great lectures out there, but Matthew, you just mentioned, I mean, that's where you get it. Vision by Design and AOMC, like, you got to get those fundamentals to understand what you're doing.
And I would make the argument that it's a big jump from designing on Wave for myopes. And it's a big jump to Trans-Limbal hyperopic ortho-K. Like, that is a monumental jump.
I remember when
Wave, a lot of moving parts.
I remember and I was doing ortho-K for 5 years plus. I was probably one of the bigger ortho-K practices, definitely in our community for sure already. And they reached out to me and they said, hey, you should probably do Wave. And I remember looking at it and I was like, are you serious? Like, number one, this is going to take me 6 months to learn. It's going to take me an hour to design. Like, why would I do that? 2 years later, I eventually dived in and I was wrong. It took me a year to learn. Plus, I'm still not perfect at it. And I was still making mistakes along the way. So there is a big learning curve. But when you jump into it, it's going to be a little tough in the beginning. But then you can handle these cases because nobody else can.
Mm-hmm. And I will also tell you that getting good at the Trans-Limbal, or even just doing the repetitions of designs, right? So 8 cases, learning the ins and outs, changing stuff, makes me better at my myopic designs than I expected I would be, which is a bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah. Can you go more into that? What was it about that made it, made it better?
Well, I think this is an interesting comment on Wave, and that is that Wave looks really simple when you look at it the first time, the first couple designs, especially if you're just in a hurry and you're...
Let me interrupt you real quick.
Please.
There's good designs also. Eye space is fantastic. Contacts is not a custom software base, but they're really good at hyperopic. And so there's a lot of great designs.
Yeah. But, okay, so where were we at? We were talking about the complicated aspect.
How would it improve your myopic design from doing the custom?
Yeah, I think it's because when it comes to designing a hyperopic Trans-Limbal design, you're getting a lot more into the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty about boxes I didn't realize were there or functions that I never realized were being done in the background. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to the softwares. All the softwares you're talking about iSpace, you're talking about other software designs, RGP Designer and so forth. There's so much going on with those programs once you really start to fool around with all the little different parts and all the different things that you can manipulate. As Anith was saying, building in asphericity, building in all the different aspects of things, and then how much you bring the reverse curve up, right? And how the reverse curve relates to the landing zone. I mean, there's a lot of parts there that most people don't utilize or don't even think about is happening in the background. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I would make it analogous to think about a young quarterback. when a young quarterback is learning, getting better and better, they're learning the playbook and they learn how to read defenses. It makes their basic stuff better too, because now they understand everything.
Yeah, I think that's true as well.
Yeah, and to Anith's point earlier, if somebody doesn't understand what's happening, the changes that are being made, in my experience, this was one of the biggest pain points, was that docs were like, well, I don't understand what's happening with this lens. I'm looking to learn. Maybe they're talking with a consultant who's like, well, we'll just do this, this, and this, but they didn't get the opportunity to talk it through and learn. And I feel like that's an unmet need. If you've got a hungry doc who's really looking to develop their skills and they can't figure out more from that experience. I don't want to disparage consultants. I love consultants. Don't get me wrong. But I think that's a very, interesting point. If you're interested in getting the rest of the episode, consider becoming a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset. In addition to an extended version of this episode and every other episode that we do, you'll also get access to exclusive monthly bonus episodes of the Myopia Mindset. And I know you're interested. You've made it this far. You can do so on our Substack, myopiamindset.substack.com. I'll see you at the next one.